the chicken plow. You tell me what else is on the menu, please, sir, for today.
This is some random little stereo speaker. It's rated for 3 watts. I took a saw to it, cut out part of the back and a little piece of the side. This is the housing from some kind of power supply that has the exact connections of a computer power supply, but was probably for a 3D printer. Notched a little section out right there that conveniently fits this transformer. And the little cut off piece of the power supply will fit in front of it. Now, 3 watts, which is a little bit less than the maximum power that the amplifier will make. I rewound this transformer so that it has a 35:1 turn ratio, which will turn a 4 ohm speaker into a 5,000 ohm speaker. Well, I don't really remember what happened, but now there's 4 pots and 2 input jacks, a whole bunch of terminal strips, a toggle switch, and 2 transformers mounted in the box, and a couple of tube sockets. This is where I found to put everything. Looks okay. So the way this is going to work, this lower transformer will step the 120 volts down to 24, and then this upper transformer will step it up to 300, and then we'll tap off the 24 volts intermediate voltage to power the filaments using some resistors in a really sketchy, unorthodox way that I'm excited about. So with that, that'll be about how that fits. You can't really tell looking at it from the front, but there are rubber grommets insulating the input jacks from ground. They are not grounded up here. They're isolated. Rather than having everything grounded to the chassis, we've opted instead to have this terminal right here be the only terminal in the entire chassis that's grounded, and have individual ground wires coming from everything that's grounded leading to the same point. It's known as the star ground or star point ground system, or you can throw some more words in there if you want to, but you know what it just means is it's only one ground. Mechanical connection. So I got up to use the bathroom, and when I came back it looked like this. What do you think about those resistors stacked up, eh? That's pretty cool. So the story is, you got 26.66 volts AC coming out of the transformer, and I need 12 volts for the one tube and 7 for the other. So we got a 100 ohm resistor here to drop voltage for the 12AX7, and 3 150s and a 220 in parallel here that drop the voltage for the 7 KY6, and they dissipate about 9 watts of heat, which doesn't seem like it would be that much, but it's actually enough to melt those solder joints right there without any kind of active cooling. So cut a perfectly round hole in the cover and put a computer fan there. There are now more semiconductors in this fan than it would take to make this amp work without tubes. So extra authentic. Of course, the fan's 12 volts. It won't run on 26 volts either, so we need another resistor right here, this 22 ohm, to drop the voltage for the fan so that it can run. And it of course dissipates even more heat. This thing would get so hot it would burn you in about an hour or less. Orange juice, potato peels. I ran these screws through the top, stuck the nuts there, and half-ass soldered them in place. So now I've got a way to mount the chassis in. With the fan, it cools just fine. It doesn't run too hot. Everything's good. And that's how it looks in the back. It just doesn't get any cooler than this. Well, actually it does, because... oh yeah! Listen to that noise from that fan. So the fancy Starpoint ground did not single-handedly eliminate all possibilities of feedback, oscillations, ground loops, squealing, or any of those other fancy words. And this is pretty cool.
Scalding and glistening, it comes out your dick or out your P-flap if you're a chick.
There's been some jokes about this channel being recorded with a potato. Well, thanks to the phone being fried. It is actually now filmed with potatoes. There are exactly 0 good cameras in use right now, so yeah, the video quality is going to be worse for a while.
Bitch, love that piss. It's a tasty drink, it's a tasty piss, it's your piss.
But it'll still squeal if nothing's hooked up to it and they turn it up all the way. So we gotta fix right now. The gain control has the yellow wire that comes off it and leads directly to the grid of a triode with nothing in between. I'm gonna slap a 1 meg ohm resistor there. A classic. And there you have it. Nothing's hooked up to it, it isn't squealing. It's making a lot of fan noise. When you plug into it, the noise quiets. Interestingly, the noise is much worse now that I have that resistor in there than it was before. But so there you go, your grid stop resistor that I put in there to mitigate this problem here. You know, it's way oversized because I just decided to go with a 1 meg. And well, let's see what the treble response is on this thing now. Seems legit. The newly created fan noise is unacceptably loud, so I've got a bullshit half-wave rectifier going on in here to hopefully smooth out the noise from the fan. That, of course, overvolted the fan, so now I've got 3 1 watt 100 ohm resistors in parallel to make a pretty well overloaded 33 ohm resistor. Now the fan sees 12.3 volts. With that set up, that's how we sound. Maxed out with nothing plugged in. Plug into the input, and yeah, that's a lot better. There's just a mild buzz in the background, a little 120 hertz stuff going on. Now it has a cleaner, pitiful attempt at bass response than it did before when it was fighting with all that noise. We good now. And that's the, what do you call this thing? The bullshit speaker blaster. It looks like a normal old cheap stereo speaker still, and it also pretty much sounds like one, but it's vacuum tubes now, so that's cool. It weighs like a bunch, and it's very top heavy. It does feel like blaster needs to be in the name for some reason, but the 12 volt and 7 volt tube filaments and 24 volt power supply is definitely a negative. It has to dissipate a solid 10 watts of heat just dropping voltage for filaments, which is really inefficient. It works fine, but it produces so much waste heat that it needs a cooling fan, and that cooling fan introduces noise that otherwise this amp wouldn't have to deal with. It's actually the only noise that it has. It was nice and quiet before the fan, so it's a disappointment that it's noisy, but it's a fully custom working tube amp and a completely homemade enclosure and a design that we came up with ourselves, and you know, we get to feel cool about that. And look, the camera's all washed out and can't decide what white balance and exposure to use because it's a I attached this random handle to the top of it, so now you can, you know, carry it around like a real guitar amp. And with that, we have the, whatever this thing's called, fully custom, orange juice flavored, potato peel shaped, goat skin covered vacuum tube guitar amp that proves that a 7KY6 makes a perfectly good output tube, and if it weren't for the jank ass output transformer, it would actually be a really good sounding amp. I have several more of these tubes, so I guess we're gonna have to make more amps with them. KineMaster's most recent updates have made the editing experience far worse than ever before. As stated in the very first video on the channel, I'm not an engineer. Never claimed to be an engineer, never intend to be an engineer or be known as an engineer. Also, you should check out some of the good engineer channels out there, like Big Clive and Fran Blanche and Mr. Carlson's Lab, because them people really know what they're talking about. And I don't.